Our strategy in Somalia, coined some years back by some analysts, is called clear, hold, and build. That's the strategy that has always been followed. You come into a country, as we did, to assist the host nation to clear the area of armed opposition groups, hold those areas that have been cleared, and build, meaning building the capacity of the host nation to be able to hold those areas and provide extended services. Now, if we're to keep 20,000 for the next 5 years, then it means we're not doing any work, because it means those areas that would have been cleared, we're not handing them over to the local host nation state services. But then how are they going to build? So this is why I'm saying there's quite a number of indicators that you need to use. One of them is the one that I made reference to say if you look at the statistics of the Somali Security Service personnel who are dying in the front line, it's an indication of that they are now getting involved. They are involved in this. You didn't hear this when we came here 2008, 2009, the numbers were very small. The fact that they are big, it's because they're getting involved. And now that's where you need to have this drawdown. So as we move back, it's because we're moving back to say they have the capacity to take over from us. They are not going to be us. And I think this needs to be clear. There's been a tendency to think that because we sit in forward operating bases, in green zones, and in all these other things, they need to be, when they take over from us, they need to be a replica of us. It's not going to be 1 + 1 is equal to 2. They are local forces. The reason we are sitting in forward bases is because we are Farangis, we're foreigners. This is not our country. I'm not going to go next door and go home and visit and sit with my neighbor. So those local forces, if you look at how at the local community level they are structured, it's actually ordinary people who have got weapons, who go about their daily route of farming and whatever they do, but then provide also security to the communities against theft, raids, and including Al-Shabaab. So that form of local security is what they can provide. Those people, you are not going to expect them to go into a military base, but they still provide an element of security. We cannot, because we are not local. We are foreigners. We came here to do a particular duty, and we have to go. So a drawdown is necessary. If we were not drawing down, it would have been an indication of contradicting our own success story. So yes, we have to draw down. The security architecture that the government is setting up is continuous. As far as we know as ATMIS, they have been involved in a lot of efforts to try and bring everybody on board. About 3 months ago, the government had indicated that even for the Somali National Army, they were reviewing the names they have in the database so that they would see who are active and who are non-active. And as I indicated, they have set up commands at the highest level here in Mogadishu, which is a national command, on training commands, on recruitment. So there is a lot of effort that they're doing out there to try and bring everybody in. What we have been indicating as ATMIS is that process is not going to be an atom bomb. Boom, it happens once. It's going to be a process that takes time. As they manage to have more ability to integrate, they will then be able to bring those groups in. And that is why the word we're using is armed opposition groups. Armed opposition groups includes Al-Shabaab. Those groups that are armed and are against peace, we will engage them. there seems to be a notion that we only engage Al-Shabaab. So if you're not Al-Shabaab, we'll not engage you. I mean, they are not written on the forehead as Al-Shabaab. What we do is when we pick up intel that there are groups that are threatening the peace and stability of the country, including us, we will be able to take action. Of course, Al-Shabaab is the most dominant one. There is another one, group, I think the one that is affiliated to ISIS. There is a name that is given to it. So yes, those processes are ongoing, integration. They are talking to the regions. They are even using community defense forces, and that's the word the government has now been using to deal with some of the issues relating to clearing the areas and holding the areas that they have. And I think in the publications that they were talking about, they're using the word Makawisli. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it properly. I think it's called, it's written Makawisli, but I think it's pronounced Mawisli. The issue of arms in this country, as you are indicating, is topical. The government itself, about 3 weeks ago, they announced, after there was an incident in the north of the country where a convoy of vehicles was intercepted that was carrying arms, and there was a conflict. Some people died, including state security force members. And immediately after that, the government re-announced its arms management policy and whatever it has put in place to deal exactly with the issues that we are raising, especially as it comes right on the heels of the lifting of the arms embargo. So yes, there is concern about these arms that are going around, with allegations that some of them are actually coming from across the Red Sea, in some of the conflict areas in the Red Sea. There is concern now about how they are getting in, and even ourselves, we are trying to improve our ability to block those areas where we know they are coming from. As you know, we've got maritime capabilities, and some of them, it is alleged, they are coming through some of the federal member states. So there's a lot of work that is going into this. But yes, the number of small arms and light weapons in the country is cause for concern. Those that are not documented, if I may. However, Burundi is part of the East Africa Standby Force, and it's part of the ASF. They are involved in initiatives of sending their personnel to these what do you call it, for these posts. As far as I can recall, the numbers have been reducing here of the civilians. So even people from Burundi, you would have noted that they would also have been affected. But I still do think we have about 3 or 4. The officer in Board of Inquiry. Yeah. Yes, the chances of civilians from Burundi being employed at NAS, they are still quite high, but that is the responsibility of ADIS. And in the event then that the government feels that its nationals are not given the opportunity, they do raise it, I think, within the PRC and ADIS. Funding, perennial challenge of the African Union, not unique, it's been there. That is why the AU set up the AU Peace Fund, to ensure that there is proper provision of support to its peace and security initiatives, including peace support operations. So yes, we continue to have that challenge. Even now, there are efforts that are being undertaken to try and raise the requisite resources. Just about 2 days ago, I had a discussion with the director who advised me that the AU was able to raise about 19 million from its own coffers, $19 million from its own coffers, to be able to plug some of the gaps that we have. But let me hasten to add that the conflict that we're involved in Somalia is not an Africa-only conflict. It is an international conflict. We don't produce AK-47s. We don't produce some of the weapons that are being used here. We are not the funders, even the people who are involved on the, what do you call it, on the other side of the fence, Al-Shabaab. They are funded elsewhere. They are not funded here. They are funded elsewhere. So this is an international conflict. Therefore, the responsibility to ensure that there is a role to be played in trying to resolve it also behoves of the United Nations to be involved. It's in the Constitutive Act of the AU. It's in the United Nations Charter that says that the United Nations is responsible for international peace and security. So therefore, it is incumbent upon, I think, all involved to continue to raise the requisite resources to be involved and to ensure that there is proper funding in this regard. You'd be aware there are discussions. About 2 months ago, the United Nations and the AU Secretariat and the Commission, they met in New York to look at options of funding using UN-assessed funding for non-UN entities. And here, the Security Council resolution that's being referred to is 2719, which is actually now one that they are trying to work modalities on. Of course, the reality is that this is not the only conflict in the world. This is not the only conflict even in Africa. You've got neighboring countries that are having serious challenges. You've got conflicts in the south. You've got conflicts in the west. Even those other countries that are supporting us in mainland Europe, they've got challenges because of conflicts taking place there. You've got the one that's on our TV all the time in the Middle East. It's ongoing. So there's always that contest in terms of resources that need to be used for funding. But we believe that a lot of work is going in this regard. The host nation is intensifying its campaign with its bilateral partners to raise resources, and they are here in numbers. I think just about 3 or 4 months ago, they passed out about 5,000 people who were trained by one of their partners, so there is a lot of work. We have been able to degrade Al-Shabaab and contribute to setting up state entities to the extent that communities now need normal services. They will not be provided by us. There are other parties and partners who are involved. Quite a number of international organizations are here today with huge budgets on these matters. As late as about, I think, 6 weeks ago, before I left for home, there was a stabilization conference that had been called in by the national government here in Mogadishu, and they had called in people from the regions. And one of the things they were doing there was to try and coordinate between themselves and the regions the resources that are received, where they are going to be going, how they are going to be sort of spread all over the show in order to deal exactly with these issues. It is a truism on what we are saying. We, even ourselves, we never intended when we set up these forward operating bases, maybe I need to mention that, when they were set up purely on military considerations, because this was at the time when we were fighting. So we would look at geostrategic, geomilitary importance of the area that we're holding, like the airport, the harbor, and all these others. It is because in our thinking we're saying we need to be able to move in our logistics, move in our supplies, extricate our people from areas. In some of the areas, maybe you didn't go to there, you would see that in some of the areas, for example in Beletwain, we dominate the mountains around so that we are able to have a better visibility and dominate the space so that Al-Shabaab is unable to move. That resulted in something we never planned. Because these people were insecure in some of the areas, then they would coalesce around our camps. So you walk into our base camp, you find that there's a whole village around it. And of course, they need food, they need water, they need schools, they need resources, and some of those communities are not in a position to go back to where they came from. So this has continued to be a challenge, and the Burundi Defense Force, like any other contingent, have really contributed to this. It's not our main priority, but in areas where we can, we do provide that support, especially water, when we're using our own facilities of boreholes. We do contribute to that. We do have outpatients departments that open up at certain times of the week. In some areas, I think it's 2 times. In some areas, it is once a week, where we allow the local community to come and have access to our medical facilities. And of course, our troops, as individuals, these rations they eat, sometimes they actually do put money together and take out of their pockets and contribute to those communities. But it is actually essentially a function of the other partners. Ourselves, it's not our main function. Burundi is a member state of the AU. This matter has consistently been raised in the Peace and Security Council. The Permanent Representative Committee is aware, so Addis Ababa is aware that this matter has been ongoing and is something that they are trying to resolve. Unfortunately for us, we are in the mission, we are recipients of whatever comes, so if the delay is at headquarters, there's little we can do here except to try and keep the morale of the troops high in whatever little manners we do, including visits to the mission, make sure at least they do get food. Even some of the areas might have visited some of the camps. The living conditions are not optimal. We'll try our best to try and improve that. I mean, we just got a report about 2 days ago, for example. We're sending in engineers to some of these areas to look at improving at least the conditions of the forces so that they're able to live a livable environment.